Welcome back to Mainstage 3 for Music Educators. Today we're going to be talking about the overview of the channel inspector and essentially assigning MIDI with that. This is the third part of this 5-part series on Mainstage. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. So here's the directory. We have essentially first 6, we have overview of the channel strip inspector. After that, we have a lot in the show assigning MIDI, and next is to do is practice. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started from there with the overview of the channel strip inspector. So before we start, I forgot to mention this right at the start. Obviously we have our big boy, we have a small boy, aka the MK Mini and my Yamaha, and then we have, like I said, I would probably incorporate it. We have the Launchpad Mini, but just forgot to mention that. So let's go ahead and start with the overview of the channel strip inspector. So obviously, channel strip inspector is that lower bottom part. This is where we can do the channel library, attributes, layer editor, MIDI input. We went over these briefly. Channel library is where we can select instruments. Attributes is the physical look. Layer editor is where we can edit layer. MIDI input is where all the magic happens. So let's go discuss these. So channel library is essentially, as I said before, is where we can select the instrument we want. So let's go look at this really quick. Literally your best friend. Find everything you need. So maybe I want, instead of this, maybe I want a marimba. And most of the time you can double click on this. You can also just go over here, click. Maybe I want, instead of fingerstyle bass, I want fretless bass. Or muted bass. I think I'll stick with the upright baby bass. And then we'll change this to sine wave grand piano. Now, like I said, do that. You can literally do a lot with that. Tributes. This is where we can change the name and such. As you can see right here, here's the icon, name, go to tributes, change the color even too. So we can change down here, change this up here, change it to, that, and change it to like piano. Oh, whoopsie. Thought that would have cleared. Piano. Change this maybe to this color. Keep that. And let's go bass. So pretty helpful overall. So moving on to layer editor. Layer editor is essentially where we can adjust the instrument layer settings. So this is another pretty big one. This is where we can split instruments on the keyboard and such. And we can do this by dragging the layers or learning them with MIDI input. Let me get the camera input with the Mainstage. So as you can see, we have piano, bass, and this isn't mapped to anything yet. We're going to map that soon, I promise you. So we can go to the layer editor for each one. So maybe one would be a little different. So I want to maybe I want to have bass on this one. So I know we haven't talked about the MIDI input one yet, but let's go over here and just put it on here. So now whenever I play this, the piano plays and the bass. We don't want that. Maybe I want everything below this note be bass and everything above that be piano. So we can do that in multiple ways. Click the channel one. So we're on piano. So I want everything C and above to be piano. So let's put the low note, learn the low note. There we go. Now let's go to the bass. Learn the high note. Well, we can put it on C as well, but then, when we're playing, and it plays that. So, easy response is by just going down one. So, there you go. There you go. That's something that you can really do. Very helpful. So let's go ahead. You can also just drag very simply. So you can do that if you don't have learn. So very useful. So going back, let's go ahead and move on. It's very easy concepts. It gets slightly harder going on from here. So MIDI input. So this is where we assign MIDI and stuff. This is where we can do edit the velocity input, note input, transpose to keyboard, and we can do a lot here. So going back to here, let's go ahead and set everything back to where it needs to be. So set piano and just set piano there. Just get the bass. Make sure we're on the bass. Going to the MIDI input. And here's the velocity. There's note input. Transposing. This is octaves. This is just semi-steps. So, and then we can also do unpitched settings as well. All right, that goes us to our next big section. So let's go ahead and start talking about assigning MIDI. So before we go on to doing that, we're going to go ahead and get this little setup really quick. So it's going to be really easy. Just going to create a software instrument. We're going to put actually none. I don't want anything to trigger it just yet. Just have that sitting there. And we're going to go to layout mode. And we're going to go over to grouped controls. Get a bunch of them. So obviously this one has an immense amount of pads. Has about, I think, 64 off the top of my head. I don't think I'm going to need that much. So we'll just use this top. We'll use this top right part since it's closer to me ish and it's a little more comfortable. So we'll just set that there. So like I said, we can assign. Let's go ahead and do that. So assign it to here. This one. This one. This one. There we go. See, it gets a little tedious at times. I'm sure there's maybe a better way. But unfortunately, I have not figured it out. So there we go. So now we can play them. Obviously, when I play the other ones, they don't work. But, so pretty useful. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and just put it on no instrument. And let's go ahead and go to the channel library. And let's go put a drum kit on. So actually, let's go put a drum machine. See how that sounds. Oh, I don't have it on anything yet. Just see how it sounds. Sample it. Eat it really quick so I can hear what it sounds like. Oh. Well, I guess it's not working. We'll just use something like this. Yeah, let's not use that. We'll just use Blue Ridge. We'll just use that. Now we're going to assign it to nothing. So I'm going to show you, though, how to assign it to the. That's what kind of this purpose of assigning MIDI is this chapter. Sorry for that little segue, but now you know how to do something like that. So assigning MIDI. Now that we got our drum set essentially there and waiting for us to assign it, let's go ahead and talk about this section. So in this section, we'll be talking about assigning MIDI inputs to parameters. So we're going to start by talking about the velocity input. Velocity input really just allows you to change the incoming velocity value to a different value as you need to. Just pause this PowerPoint whenever you need, of course, and just look through it. I, of course, will be sending this out with everything else. You can do this by selecting one of the presets at the top of the menu, all that. So, kind of makes sense. So, for example, there's the presets at the top left of the image. And you can see this is a default velocity input. So let's show you this really quick. There we go. Let me get one of my other keyboards in. Sorry. Here we go. The other view. So if I play soft, it plays soft. Play hard, it plays hard. Yep, that's the default graph right there. So look at the next one. So this is the opposite of the default graph. So essentially, if I play soft, it's going to play really hard. If I play really hard, it's going to play soft. So it's going to do exactly opposite of what it needs to do. You would never need this, but it's good for demonstration purposes. So I can just do that by selecting this one. So here's hard. Oh, whoops. I do not have it on the right one. Hence why that's not working. There we go. My bad. Didn't matter before because it wasn't there. As you can see, look at the top here. I'm hitting this with immense force. 112 is pretty powerful. Obviously, 127 is even more powerful. This probably can't get there anymore. Maybe back in the day it could, but it can't. This one, you can see it easily hits 127. And you see it gets as low as 8. This one kind of does. Now, if you notice why it's really loud when I hit it really soft, you notice up here, is because of this inverse graph. However, if I hit it hard, it's soft. So there's something that you can screw around with. So moving on, here's a very common one. So, right, just really soft. No matter how I hit it, its velocity is set stat. So we can also edit this by, if I can get it, I can, set it, everything defaults to, let's say, 64. Look at that. I'm hitting that at 119. It's pretty powerful. And I'm hitting this at like 9. Still gonna just output 64. So this is a very helpful graph. This is what I use for a lot of sound effects to make sure that this stays the same. So that being said, you can do some really crazy graphs with that being said. Let's do some of those right now. Let's do something like this. Here's one that you may use. Maybe let's say you don't trust your peeps in winter percussion to play within set thing. So let's set it for play within this. We'll play there, and then maybe so here's an example of something like that. So essentially, if I play, with a incoming velocity of 0 to 32, let's get this a little so you can hear a clear difference. So, it's coming in with 14, 24, something below 32. That means it's going to be default to 10. However, as soon as I play above that, 33 to 64, it's going to play a static 72. However, after I go past that, it starts to scale up. So it gets louder when I do that. So there's an example of a crazy graph. Now we're going to talk about mapping controls to parameters. So let's go ahead and go. If we click on the sustain pedal, we can see in the screen controller section that is mapped in the same as. So let's go ahead and look at it. Oh, well, I don't have a sustain pedal. Something I forgot to do. Let's go ahead and just add those. Sustain pedal. Map it to this one down here. I'll show you on screen. So we just mapped it. Now when I play, so we just did that. So it affects both of them. However, this next section is how we can edit that. So I'm going to put it right in front of me. So if you notice, when we click on it, same as input. So let's go ahead. And we also have an expression pedal. Whoopsie. Put one of those there. I don't actually have an expression pedal. Surprisingly, I never actually went around to buying one. Because I don't even think any of my keyboards here right now have an expression pedal port. Some don't, so. And there's not a lot of groups anymore that use expression pedal anymore. So, sad reality of it. But we'll go ahead and put one just for a little reference. So, let's go ahead, move on. Let's go ahead and manually set the pedal to sustain from the sound from the menu. So, essentially what we're going to be doing now is, so you notice whenever I press it, it works. Oh, whoops. Let's come down there. So maybe we want to be a little different. We can go to the piano and we just wanted to do it for piano MIDI controller, and we just have to go and find sustain in the little menu. Sometimes it can be hard what you find. There we go. So now check this out. If you notice, now the bass isn't sustained. So now it only affects that. Now, maybe we want to do it. Instead of just pressing same as input, we can go to bass and do the same exact thing. Go to sustain. So this is a really stupid way of doing it because we can just set same as input, and it'll do both of them. But yeah, there you go. So, but let's just make it where it affects the piano only. We can make it sustain. We can also like set it to sustain, obviously, for just certain patches. However, maybe I want to be different. Maybe I want it to mute. So let's go ahead and try that. So let's go ahead. So we have sustain. Let's make it mute. Look at that. Look at that. So that's one way to do it. My sustain pedal is also going out. Wonderful. So that's one thing. And now we're going to be talking about you can see we can edit the small specific parts. So let me get there. It's acting up a little. Sometimes it does that. So save value. This would be like whenever you load the patch, this is what it first comes up with. So maybe I wanted to have it, when I press it, it's unmuted. But when I put it, when it's off, it's muted. Now it's supposed to be working like that, but it's running a little slow right now. So there's something that you can do. Very helpful because you can do a lot of stuff with that. We can also set it to, something like pan. So let's try that really quick. So have our pedal. Let's set it to something like pan. We can do it like this. So notice, check the pan out over here. So this is really stupid. You would never have to do something like this. And then the next part is we can edit those values and do it even more. So like maybe when I press it, it's 16, maybe it's not. Maybe switch it. Yeah. Sometimes you have to inverse the polarity on it for it to work properly, but that was not the case. But there you go. There's something that you can do right there. So that's an example of like editing the sustain pedal to do stuff. So here's an example. When the pedal is pressed, it'll now set the pan to 25, but when it's depressed, it'll default back to negative 25. There's an example of that. Now we're going to be talking about this. Putting the MIDI input in the patch hierarchy, which is essentially if you do something to the concert level, it will make that edit in the patch level. So let's change that. We can essentially, the synopsis of that is if I go to the concert level and I set this to be, actions, maybe I want it to be continue. So it does that. We have to actually go here, override concert mapping in order to do our weird pan thing and not do the continue. So there's a little insight for you. Essentially, this dictates that. So moving on. So to do the practice. Now, before we do that, I have one more area that I left out. We're going to go ahead and get this working right here. So I want this to be snare. So before we do anything, let's go ahead and get this. Let's label it drums. We already have our stuff, so let's just go ahead and put it on Yamaha, mute the piano, figure out which one's snare. Actually, bass drum. You can see up here, C1 is that. So if you're paying attention, right here, I want this to go to the drums, MIDI note. This is how I do some of the sound effects. When I press this, and this doesn't have velocity sensitivity at all. My like little thing down here doesn't have a lot of velocity, doesn't have any velocity sensitivity, which I didn't know about that. However, it's very helpful on sample work. So you can also trigger it here. Oh wait, hold up. Oh, that's not right. Drums, MIDI input. Interesting. So that's not supposed to be doing that. Because maybe I want this. Oh, well, never mind. It is working. It's just. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's not supposed to be doing that. So there's an example for you. I don't know why it's doing that. I haven't officially used this with Mainstage all that much, so I actually don't know why it's doing that. That must be the one of the presets on here that I can change. So that must be just one of those problems. Something that I can't really change right off the bat. So I would have to go in and program it. There you go. So let's go ahead and do some of these to-do dash practices. So set where all incoming MIDI velocity defaults to 90. That's an easy one. We're going to piano. You know, easily do that by going here. Oh, there we go. So, whoopsie. You guys couldn't see that. And it's muted. Wait, get rid of my camera. Wrong way. There we go. There we go. So now all default incoming MIDI for the piano defaults to 90. Let's go ahead and set it to opposite of their default values. That's another easy one. Go back to here, just do that. There you go. It's the opposite of default values. So set where all incoming MIDI velocity defaults to 50 with any input under 100 and defaults to 90 with any input above 100. So this is where it gets a little more complicated. So where the incoming MIDI defaults to 50 with any input under 100. So essentially a little two-step. It's under 100, which is right here. Defaults to 50. So go ahead and do that. 50 with anything down to 100, and then 90, 100 above that. So 101 to 90. There you go. Oh, did not mean that. So there's an example of that. Next one, where any incoming MIDI velocity defaults to 30, any input under 50. So let's go ahead and do that. So anything under 50 defaults to 30. So this is just really practice. It's not really real world you would use this. Then defaults to 10 from any input. Oh, defaults to 10 from any inputs from 51 to 90. Okay, that's also not a bad one. I don't know why that keeps popping. So 50 to 90 will be 10. Let's get that down to 10. And the last one is anything from 91. So essentially, this doesn't work once it gets up to 91. So let's change that. So set 91 to 91. And simply do that. So that's that example. So if I play it really soft, it'll output as 30. If I play above that really soft, it goes there. However, I get it right above 91, then it'll go back to its normal value, like it was a straight line. So there's that example. MIDI assigning. We already kind of went over these examples. I don't think we really need to go over these ones really again. So we already went over these, so I don't think we really go over them again. So that being said, that's it. So as always, if you have questions, elliottbuell@gmail.com. 2 L's, 2 T's, BUEHL. So, well, thank you again. That was the third video. That's the wrap of the third video. This one was probably going to be the longest one. It may become second longest, but hopefully not. Well, thank you again. Look forward to the second one, and then thank you for your time.